according to some journalists who looked at the public debt register, which has not yet been made public. It's supposed to be public, the most recent update. The old one, I think going to 2015 is public. You can read it off the Treasury website. It looks like all the money that that was supposed to be for the royal dams that has not been built had actually been drawn. Because even by the time it's reflected in your debt, it actually means that it has been drawn. That's how it ends up in the public debt register, because you're now paying for the money that has been drawn. So the question then becomes, and we know, of course, there are no dams. Were the dams simply front for commercial borrowing to fund the budget? And these things do happen, where commercial borrowing to fund the budget is disguised as something else. Or perhaps the dam stalled and projects sort of went the way they did, and they decided to borrow the money anyway because they're desperate for money. We don't know, but there is a hugely untransparent thing to do with the Aral Dam financing, which is not about the corruption in the projects, in the dams. It is actually a question of procurement of debt. There's a procurement of debt issue, a big one, which is bigger than the issue of the dams. If this is indeed true, that this money was drawn, it was borrowed in the guise of building dams. Some money was advanced to contractors. Some of it was frittered this way or the other, perhaps. But if the whole of the amount of money has been drawn and is now part of our public debt, there's a much, much bigger question that need to be asked. I also highlight that there is a parliamentary committee finding of 20 billion shillings lost in stalled big dam projects. These dam projects, you look at these dam projects, you read those reports on each one of them, and you ask yourself, when did we become this incompetent that every dam project stalls? Every big dam project has stalled. So there's something going on there. Whether the dams were meant to be completed or they were actually just meant as front to get money out, you begin to ask questions. But the most interesting thing, or the more sort of critical thing, or the what you might call actually the smoking gun in the water sector, is you look at the amount of money spent over the review period. I was talking about 143 billion on water projects, and they say this money has been used to increase the access water from something like 40 to 60%. You do the calculation, 6 million people. So that works out to a capital cost of about 24,000 shillings per person. And then I go back and say, wait a minute, you do have actual data on government water projects and how much they cost. They provide, this is the cost of the project. This is the number of, the volume of water that you're going to do. This is the number of people that benefit. There are some benchmarks, and I provide some analysis there which shows that taking an average of about 5 projects with very diverse costs, because water projects vary a lot depending on what the source is, how far it is from whatever, how much damming is required and dredging and all manner of things. That those 5 projects you're talking about they range from about 3 or 4 billion to 3 or 4,000 per person's requirement of water, if it's some number, to almost 30,000. But the average is about 12,000, even without diversity. So they cover the broad diversity of projects that you would do. But if you look at the budget spent, it says the actual cost is actually double that. So you're saying if you have provided water for 6 million people, you should have done it at 70 billion, not 140 billion. So where did 70 billion go on average? Unless those other projects are way more expensive than this sample of projects that I have. And the sample of the projects I have is very representative of the big projects that we've been doing, the collector, Northern Collector, Tato, Ruiro 2, quite a few of the World Bank funded type projects, which I think are properly costed. More interesting is going forward is you read the water strategic plan, where I'm getting these numbers from. And they now plan that up to 2022, they want to increase their access to sort of safe water from 60 to 80%. So they are going to provide 14 million more people with water at a cost, and they're asking for a budget of 496 billion shillings to do this. Now that works out to a capital cost of 36,000 shillings per person. Now, if you work with 12,000 shillings per person, these 496 billion shillings is enough to provide water for 40 million people. So who does this kind of budgeting, and what's the purpose of inflating the costs? Obviously, when they go to negotiating the budget with the Treasury, they may not get the entire amount, but they're going to get a big chunk of it, where it's inflated by a huge margin. We ask about question money. So, but if you just look at this figure as it is, that it has been put in there in the strategic plan, the amount of money that should go to meet this water target by 2022, we are really looking at sort of 330 billion shillings of budgeted corruption. Yeah? Taking this, even if you increase the cost, and I don't see how the smaller water projects tend to be cheaper. They don't have as complex engineering. It definitely, if you look at these people and decided to give every household, you take on a per capita basis. So look, the government is not going to provide, but here's a subsidy. If you have a household of 5, here's 60,000 shillings for you to provide yourself with water. I'm absolutely certain that he will actually do it at a cost lower than that, even if it's just roof harvesting with a tank. Anyway, but it is so irresponsible, the kind of budgeting that you see in the NIASC. Who scrutinizes these figures? How do they get in there? These are professionals. You have engineers, you have QSs, you have PSs who are supposed to be overseeing these things. They're supposed to be experts in these fields, or they are able to hire experts. They have economists. What the hell is going on in this system? What happens in Parliament? The Parliament has a parliamentary budget office. They have research staff. If they have civil society organizations that are willing to work with them on these sort of things. What are all these people doing when these things like this are going through?